Hi, welcome back to the Weekly Why. This week we are starting the book of Bamidbar, or the book of Numbers. In Hebrew, Bamidbar doesn't really mean numbers, it means in the desert. Ba is in and Midbar is a desert. But in English, the common term for the third book of the Bible, the fourth book of the Bible is Numbers, because a lot of this book deals with the census, counting the people. And this, like the last book, Leviticus, or Vayikra, which dealt a lot of the sacrifices, it was very dry and repetitive. Like the last book, Leviticus, this one, Bamidbar, or Numbers, can be also very dry. I mean, the first Parsha, a big chunk of the first Parsha is all, which is the name of the book, Bamidbar. So this Parsha is just talking about the census of the Jewish people. It's very, very dry at first glance, and it can be very difficult to glean any kind of a meaning out of it. But as we mentioned, the whole point of the Weekly Why is to hopefully dig to the bottom and say, why is the relevance and what is the relevance of some of these parshas. So one of the things I want to examine from this one is that we have, at this parsha, we have the divisions of the Jewish people. Okay, so they were split up into their tribes. Now this is introduced at the beginning of the parsha, and this happens, the divisions happen in the second year after the Exodus from Egypt. Now, we can first of all look at, there's a couple questions that might come to mind. We might say, well, okay, before they left Egypt and just when they left Egypt, the Jewish people were as one group. They weren't split into a number of tribes. So if now they're split into tribes, second year after the Exodus, well, if that was the ideal way, if that's the perfect way that a system or the Israelites should have been living, then why weren't they split up into tribes at the immediate moment they left, right? Why did you have to wait till the second year for that to be done? So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, what he said was that the Jewish people, they had before, even though they were only as one group, they had a central rallying point. And so that central rallying point was the Mishkan, or the traveling tabernacle. So when you go to Israel and you see the Western Wall, that Western Wall is part of the former temple that was destroyed 2,000 years ago. Now, before the Jews were in Israel, before they were in Jerusalem, the temple which they had, obviously on a smaller scale, but the temple they had was the Mishkan, or the tabernacle, right? So the service of God in that tabernacle was something that everybody could focus on, even though they were in one group. Okay, but that wasn't really sustainable, because that's not really a perfect situation, because everybody's really doing the same thing. They're not really finding their own individual voice. And so what he was saying is that, the reason that they were able to really do it before was because even though they were one group, usually there'd be bickering and fighting, but there wasn't, because we were focused on the same thing. But then afterwards, when they split, you would think that there would be huge, as you mentioned, that kind of a bickering and fighting once you split. But wasn't that case at all. In fact, the Chofetz Chaim, what he was saying is that this, on one hand, can be a source of weakness. People are doing different things. We could look at this and we say, well, wouldn't it be better that the Jewish people were as one group? I mean, they were all focused on one thing. Why should you split one people to have such a cohesive unit and split it all up and make it so divisive? And so the idea was, it doesn't have to be divisive, because even if they're working for the same goal, if they're coming from different angles and different strengths, it can perhaps be stronger. For example, your eyes are not jealous of your ears, which aren't jealous of your mouth or your hands or your nose. They all work, in a symbiotic relationship to achieve the same goal of, making your body function, right? So, in other words, if your eyes work twice as great but your ears didn't work, well, you would be it wouldn't work as well, right? Everything needs to be working together. So certainly the lesson for the Jewish people is that everybody has their role to play. And so the message for us, and that hopefully the blessing that I can give to yourself, to you and to us, is that we should be able to have the clarity, and again, we should stop and ask for that clarity and pray and delve for that clarity, to ask, what exactly is it that we as individuals and we as a community can contribute? What is our contribution to ourselves, to our community, to the Jewish people, and obviously to the world at large? What is it that, what skills do I have? What was the reason that I specifically was put on this planet? And what is it that I can achieve here? And obviously that's very, very important, because certainly logic and Judaism would say that if there weren't a specific reason for your existence, you wouldn't have been born. Only you and only you can achieve a particular goal, and if you don't achieve that, then ultimately nobody else can do it. And so that leads into the second idea about Shavuot, which we will be starting this Tuesday night. Now, Shavuot happens 50 days after the beginning of Pesach, Passover, and it commemorates the receiving when the entire Jewish people received the Torah from God at Mount Sinai. Now, there's a couple ideas to be gleaned from this, is that this Shavuot always happens after this Parsha bamidbar, or Numbers. We never have the holiday of Shavuot before this Parsha. Now, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein pointed out this is an interesting lesson from that, is that in this Parsha we read about the numbers, and it's a census where every single Jew gives in a half shekel. Everybody from the lowest person up to Moses and his brother Aaron, everybody gives the exact same amount. Now, it's a very key lesson for us to take going into Shavuot, when the entire Jewish people as one received the Torah and had this mass revelation from God. Why is that important? It's important because, we go into Shavuot, and Shavuot is a time when a lot of Jews have accustomed to learn all night, learn Torah all night, classes learn one-on-one or, on their own, and so it can seem very intimidating. And this should be a perfect lesson from us, is that no matter where we stand, no matter where we are on the spectrum of observance or knowledge, is that ultimately we have the same abilities, same potential, and same responsibility to be able to have that impact on each other, ourselves, and the community around us. So my blessing for myself and for all of us is that we can use Shavuot as that opportunity to gain clarity, not just on what we can do for ourselves and how we can grow, but how we can parlay that into positive growth for the Jewish people and all those around us. Okay? Best wishes, shalom, and take care.